She needs the extra income more than you do, Sarah, my father said, not even looking up from his newspaper. You have your accounting job. Emma's still trying to find her path. I gripped the bank statement in my hand tighter, the paper crinkling under my fingers. The numbers jumped out at me. $8,000 in rental income from our family's apartment complex, all going straight to my younger sister's account, while I paid the $5,000 monthly mortgage from my salary. Find her path? I repeated, struggling to keep my voice steady. She's been finding her path for the past 2 years, while I've been working 60-hour weeks to cover the mortgage payments. My mother bustled in from the kitchen, wiping her hands on her apron. Honey, you know how hard it's been for Emma since she dropped out of college. She needs this boost to get started in life. I looked down at my phone, where Emma's latest Instagram post glowed mockingly. A photo of her lounging on a yacht in the Mediterranean, champagne glass in hand. The caption read, "Living my best life. #entrepreneur life." The irony was almost too much to bear. I was an accountant at one of Boston's top firms, and here I was, watching my 25-year-old sister spend money that should have been split between us. Money from the apartment complex our grandparents had left to both of us. This isn't about Emma finding herself, I said, laying the bank statement on the coffee table. This is about basic fairness. We co-own the building. Why am I paying all the expenses while she keeps all the profit? My father finally looked up, his expression a mixture of irritation and dismissal, one I'd grown all too familiar with. Sarah, you've always been the responsible one. You know how to handle money, how to build a career. Emma needs more support. Support. That's what they called it when they let Emma live rent-free in our childhood home, while I paid market rate for my apartment. Support was their explanation when they used my portion of our inheritance to fund Emma's jewelry business. And now support meant watching her travel the world on rental income while I drained my savings to keep the mortgage current. I pulled up the property management app on my phone, scrolling through the occupancy reports. All 20 units were rented, most at above market rates, thanks to the recent renovations I'd overseen and paid for. The building was more profitable than ever, and I hadn't seen a single cent of it. Did you know she's charging the tenants for parking now? I asked, turning my phone to show them the updated lease agreements. That's an extra $200 per spot. Where's that money going? My mother's face clouded with confusion. Parking fees. But we've never charged for parking before. Emma said it was standard practice now. My father interjected quickly. She's modernizing the business model. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Modernizing? Is that what we're calling it? Because from where I stand, it looks like embezzlement. The word hung in the air like a thundercloud. My mother gasped, and my father's face turned an interesting shade of red. How dare you, he sputtered. Your own sister. My own sister, I cut in, is collecting money from our jointly owned property without documentation, without splitting the profit, and without paying taxes on the income. Do you know what the IRS calls that? The silence that followed was deafening. I could almost see the wheels turning in my father's head as he processed the implications. My mother had sunk into her favorite armchair, twisting her wedding ring anxiously. You wouldn't, my father said finally, his voice low. You wouldn't report your own family. I stood up, gathering my things. I've documented everything for the past 2 years, every mortgage payment from my account, every deposit into Emma's, every renovation bill I paid, every lease agreement she modified without my consent. I even have screenshots of her social media posts showing expenses that don't match her reported income. Sarah, please, my mother pleaded. We can work this out as a family. family. The word had lost its meaning somewhere between Emma's third luxury vacation this year and my dwindling retirement savings. I'm done working things out as a family, I said, heading for the door. From now on, we can work things out legally. My phone buzzed as I reached my car. Another Instagram notification from Emma. A photo of her shopping in Milan, designer bags hanging from both arms. Sometimes you have to spoil yourself. #entrepreneur, #businesswoman. I smiled, starting my car. Emma had no idea what was coming. None of them did. Back at my apartment, I pulled out the carefully organized file I'd been building for the past year. Inside were bank statements, property records, tax documents, and a detailed log of every conversation I'd had with my family about the rental income. But the most standing evidence was the letter I'd received last week from the IRS, confirming receipt of my whistleblower report. I submitted it anonymously, of course. Let them think it came from a disgruntled tenant or a nosy neighbor. The important thing was that it had triggered an audit. And when the auditor arrived, they would find exactly what I knew they would. Years of unreported income, misappropriated funds, and tax evasion. My phone rang, Emma's face lighting up the screen. I let it go to voicemail, already knowing what she wanted. She'd been calling more frequently lately, usually to complain about maintenance costs or ask me to cover an unexpected expense. Last week, it was a new security system. The week before, she needed the lobby renovated to maintain our property value. The voicemail notification popped up, and I played it on speaker. "Sarah, hey. I know you're probably busy with your boring accountant stuff, but I need a tiny favor. The property taxes are due next week. Can you handle that? I'm still in Europe, and these international transfers are such a hassle. Thanks, sis. Love you." I saved the voicemail, adding it to my evidence file. Property taxes were $224,000 annually, and this would have been the third year I paid them while Emma collected the rent. But not this time. This time, the payment would come due exactly 3 days after the IRS audit began. My laptop pinged with an email notification. It was from Marcus Chen, the IRS auditor assigned to our case. He wanted to schedule an initial meeting at the property next week. Perfect timing. I drafted a quick response, agreeing to the meeting and offering to provide any documentation he needed. Then I wrote a second email to our property manager, requesting complete records of all rental payments, maintenance expenses, and lease modifications for the past 3 years. The property manager's response was almost immediate. "Sarah, your sister told us to send all records directly to her. Should I check with her first?" I smiled, typing my reply. "As co-owner of the property, I have an equal right to all records. Please send them to me immediately. And in the future, any changes to property management must have my written approval." Attached to my email was a copy of the property deed, showing my 50% ownership stake. Let Emma try to block this request. It would only add to the evidence of her financial misconduct. My phone buzzed again. A text from my mother. "Please call us. We need to talk about this as a family." I ignored it, focusing instead on organizing my documentation for the upcoming audit. They had 2 years to talk about this as a family. 2 years of watching Emma spend money that should have been shared. 2 years of listening to their excuses about why she deserved it more than I did. Now it was time for someone else to look at the numbers. Someone who wouldn't be swayed by family ties or emotional manipulation. Someone who would see exactly what I'd seen. A clear pattern of financial abuse, masked as family support. I opened my spreadsheet detailing the property's finances. The numbers told a compelling story. Monthly rental income, $88,000. Parking fees, 20 spots x $200 equals $4,000. Total monthly revenue, $122,000. Expenses. Mortgage, paid by me, $5,000. Insurance, paid by me, $800. Maintenance, paid by me, $1,200. Property taxes, paid by me, $22,000. Total monthly expenses, $29,000. Total monthly profit, taken by Emma, $93,000. The disparity was stark. And that was before factoring in the renovations I funded or the additional fees Emma had implemented without my knowledge. The IRS would have a field day with this. My doorbell rang, startling me from my calculations. Through the peephole, I saw my father standing in the hallway, his face set in the stern expression he used when he thought he could intimidate me into compliance. I didn't open the door. "Sarah," he called out, knocking again. "We need to talk about this. You're making a huge mistake." I sat back down at my desk, putting on my noise-canceling headphones as he continued to knock. The only mistake I'd made was letting this go on for so long. But that was about to change. My laptop pinged again. Another email from Marcus Chen, confirming our meeting for next Tuesday at 9:00 a.m. I marked my calendar, adding a reminder to bring copies of all my documentation. Let Emma enjoy her European shopping spree. Let my parents try to guilt me into backing down. In 1 week, everything would change, and no amount of family pressure could stop what was coming. The truth was in the numbers, and numbers don't lie, no matter how much my family wished they would. The day before the IRS audit, Emma finally came home from Europe. I watched through my office window as her taxi pulled up to the apartment complex, designer luggage spilling out of the trunk. She looked tanned and carefree, chatting animatedly on her phone as the driver struggled with her bags. "You won't believe what Sarah's doing," I heard her say as she passed beneath my window. "She's being completely unreasonable about the property taxes. I mean, she's an accountant. She knows how to handle these things." I smiled, turning back to my computer, where Marcus Chen's final confirmation email waited. 9:00 a.m. tomorrow. Emma had no idea. She'd returned just in time for the storm. My phone lit up with a text from our property manager. "Your sister is asking for the rental payment records. Should I send them?" "Yes," I replied. "Send her exactly what you sent me. Let her see the paper trail. Let her realize what she'd done." Within an hour, my father was calling. I picked up on the third ring, putting him on speaker as I continued organizing my documentation. "What's this about an IRS audit?" he demanded, skipping any pretense of a greeting. "Oh, you've heard about that?" I kept my voice casual. "Yes, they're doing a routine check of the property's finances tomorrow morning. Emma should have plenty of documentation for all that rental income she's been collecting." There was a long pause. I could almost hear him sweating. "Sarah," he said finally, his voice taking on that patronizing tone I'd grown to hate. "I know you're upset about the income distribution, but bringing in the IRS, this could hurt the whole family." "The whole family," I repeated. "Like I've been hurt? Watching my savings disappear while Emma posts about her 4th vacation this year. That kind of hurt? You know, that's different." "No, Dad. It's not different. It's actually very simple. Either Emma reports her income and pays her taxes like everyone else, or she faces the consequences. That's how the real world works." "We can fix this internally," he pleaded. Your mother and I will make sure Emma starts sharing the rental income. We'll set up a proper agreement. I glanced at my evidence file, thinking of the 2 years of meticulous records it contained. It's too late for that, I said. The audit starts at 9 a.m. tomorrow. I suggest Emma brings all her financial records, if she's kept any. After I hung up, the calls started pouring in. Emma. My mother. Even my aunt tried to reach me. I silenced my phone and focused on my final preparations. At 8:30 the next morning, I arrived at the apartment complex to find my entire family waiting in the lobby. Emma looked significantly less relaxed than she had yesterday. Her designer outfit contrasted sharply with her worried expression. My parents stood on either side of her like guards, protecting their precious investment. Sarah. My mother stepped forward, wringing her hands. Please, can we talk about this before the auditor arrives? We've had 2 years to talk about this, I replied, checking my watch. The auditor will be here in 20 minutes. I hope everyone has their documentation ready. Emma facepad. Documentation, yes, Emma, records of all. The rental income you've collected. Receipts for expenses, tax forms you have. Been keeping records, haven't you? She glanced desperately at our father, who stepped forward with a folder. We have bank statements, he said firmly, and Emma's willing to work out a new arrangement for the income distribution. Going forward, I raised an eyebrow. Going forward, what about the past 2 years of unreported income, the unauthorized fee? The tax evasion, Emma's voice rose to a squeak. Dad, you said the rental income was exempt because it's a family property. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. There's no such thing as a family property exemption, I said, watching my father's face redden. Every dollar of rental income should have been reported and taxed, but you knew that, didn't you? Dad, that's why you let Emma take all the money, so it wouldn't show up on your tax return. The lobby doors opened and Marcus Chen walked in, briefcase in hand. He looked exactly like his LinkedIn photo, precise, professional, and utterly immune to family drama. Good morning, he said, glancing around at our tense group. I'm here for the audit of property income and expenses. Who am I speaking with? I'm Sarah Mitchell. I stepped forward, extending my hand. Co-owner of the property. This is my sister Emma, the other co-owner, and her parents. Marcus nodded, consulting his notebook. I received your initial documentation, Miss Mitchell. Very thorough, Miss Emma Mitchell. Do you have your records ready as well? Emma clutched her designer purse, looking like she might be sick. I've there been a misunderstanding about the record keeping requirements. A misunderstanding? Marcus raised an eyebrow. According to our preliminary investigation, you've been collecting approximately $144,000 annually in rental income, none of which has been reported on your tax returns. That's quite a significant misunderstanding. My mother gasped. My father looked like he'd swallowed something unpleasant, and Emma finally seemed to understand the magnitude of what she'd done. I can explain, she started, but Marcus held up a hand. Please save your explanations for the formal interview. For now, I'll need to see any documentation you have regarding the property's income and expenses for the past 3 years. I opened my briefcase and handed over my file. Here's everything from my end: mortgage payments, maintenance costs, property taxes, insurance premiums, all pay for my personal accounts while Emma collected the rental income. Marcus took the file, nodding appreciatively at its Organization. Then he turned to Emma. And your records, Miss Mitchell. Emma's designer bag suddenly seemed very small and empty. I might need some time to gather everything, of course, Marcus said, his tone professional but unyielding. In the meantime, we'll begin by reviewing these records and interviewing each party separately. Shall we start with you, Miss Emma Mitchell? As Marcus led my sister toward the office, I caught a glimpse of her face. The carefree Instagram influencer was gone, replaced by someone who finally understood that actions have consequences. My father grabbed my arm as I turned to follow them. You can still stop this, he hissed. Tell them it was a mistake. I gently removed his hand. The only mistake, I said quietly, was thinking you could keep this